who had been arrested for rioting. The consequence of that action is those men and women who are arrested for illegal behavior were immediately back on the streets. And it's clear what the consequences of that is. This election is a choice between those leaders, JD Vance, President Trump, who stand with the men and women of law enforcement, and those leaders, Governor Walz, Vice President Harris, who took the side of the criminals who are engaged in illegal behavior across the country. This is our opportunity to make sure that our communities are safe, to stand with the men and women of law enforcement, and to keep our communities safe. And so to everyone here, thanks for coming out. I thank Senator JD Vance for coming to the community of Kenosha to speak about the importance of public safety in a place where 4 years ago we needed it more than ever. And I in particular thank the men and women of law enforcement, those who are here with us today and those all across our state and across our country, who wake up in the morning, put a badge over their heart, walk out the door knowing they're going to answer the call on our behalf, but not knowing what the call may be. And may that call never be as dark as it was 4 years ago, here today. But we know that we back the badge. Thank you all. God bless.
United States, Senator JD Vance.
Why go to the these United States, we're the ones who need it worst. Let the rest of the world help us function. Our highways and bridges are falling apart. Who's blessed and who has been cursed? There's things to be around all over the world. Let's rebuild America first.
It's every single person in our community. And I think, unfortunately, we have a very stark contrast between two approaches to police and two approaches to public safety in this race. We have Vice President Kamala Harris, who's really the acting president, because we know Joe Biden isn't home, so somebody's calling the shots, and I guess it's Kamala. And what we have in Kamala Harris is a person who has said that she wants to defund the police. Do we want to defund the police out there? This is a person who wants to change the laws around violent criminals so that people who commit sex crimes with minors would not be categorized as violent offenders. Do we think that's a good idea? No, absolutely not. It's not a good idea. Now, by contrast, we have President Donald J. Trump, who supported police, who backed the blue, and who made it easier for police to do their jobs. And remember, this is not just about making it easy on our police. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that when we make it easy on police, we make it so that every child in America has access to a basic right, which is public safety in their neighborhoods. And ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in a family that did not have a whole lot of money, that often had we had sometimes a rough neighborhood. But we were lucky enough to grow up in a country that believed that public safety was the birthright of every American citizen, rich or poor, and we supported our police in carrying out that mission of public safety. I remember, actually, I think I was probably 11 or 12 years old, and my mom struggled with addiction, and she was having a particularly tough episode, and I called the local police in Middletown, Ohio. And I remember they showed up, and they took care of my mom, and they made a little kid who was terrified of what was going on in his home, they made that little kid feel safe. And I think about what situation would I have been in, and what situation our country would be in if we take away every child's right to public safety. And that's unfortunately what the Democratic leadership is proposing in this country. You know how bad it's been the last few years? Have you seen the data on murder rates, on violent crime rates? You know that the gross majority now of violent crimes in this country go unsolved. So if, God forbid, you were assaulted in your own community, it's much more likely today that that crime will go unsolved, that they'll never catch the person who did it. That is because of the leadership of our vice president. Now she wants to be promoted to President of the United States, and I think we're all going to say absolutely not. Kamala Harris, we're going to fire Kamala Harris in November, and we're going to bring back Donald J. Trump. Now, before I move on here, I want to bring up a couple of folks, a couple of great public servants here in the state of Wisconsin. And by the way, we're going to win Wisconsin in November. I feel as confident about it as I ever have been. And you guys are going to make it happen. But I want to have just a couple of people say a few things here. And I'm going to start here with Pete Dietz, the president of the Kenosha Professional Police Association. I'd love, Pete, if you would come and say just a few words about what's going on here today. Where's Pete? There he is. All right, Pete, come on up here. All right, everybody, please give a round of applause for Pete Dietz.
Well, I'm not going to give my speech again. He'll have to check it out on the TV. But the Board of Directors of the Kenosha Professional Police Association are proud to endorse President Donald Trump and Senator JD Vance.
When Pete walked up here, he said, "I just saw you in Milwaukee," and I said, "Yeah, I remember that. I basically live in Wisconsin now. I don't know if you guys figured that out. So you'll be seeing a lot. You'll be seeing a lot of me over the next few months. But Pete, thank you so much for your support. I'd like to have. We'll see about that, sir. I'd like to call up Congressman Brian Stiles. Congressman Brian, where are you at out there? There we are. So Brian. We give him a round of applause. I appreciate it. But Brian wrote a really, really good article about what happened in Kenosha in 2020. Really opened my eyes. Brian, thank you for your leadership and service.
Senator, thank you. Senator Vance, thanks for coming to Kenosha today. As we talked about earlier, the importance of standing with the men and women of law enforcement could not be more important than when we're standing here in the city of Kenosha. As we saw 4 years ago this week, what happens when elected leaders refuse to stand with the men and women of law enforcement? And we saw in great contrast what happens when leaders like President Trump answer the call and stand with the men and women of law enforcement and bring public safety to our community, right? And as we look around, I think it's really important that we say thank you once again to all the men and women of law enforcement from the Kenosha Police Department, Kenosha Sheriff's Department, and other law enforcement agencies that are with us here today because President Trump, because JD Vance, because we back the badge. Senator Vance, thanks for coming to Wisconsin. We still have time to make you a Packers fan. Thank you. God bless. God bless America.
Thank you. Oh, we got some Chicago fans out there too. Wow. All right. We're gonna have some conflict, some civil strife here. Not today. We're all here to support the police, whatever our sports allegiance is. And finally, I want to get a great future colleague in Washington, a guy who built a business in Wisconsin, who has served the people of this state in the private sector, and is now crazy enough to want to serve in the public sector. The great Eric Hovde, the next senator from the state of Wisconsin. Eric, come on up here.
Well, as I walk through, Kamala Harris has failed at every single role that she played, from state AG or DA for San Francisco, or as senator pushing the dumbest idea, defund the police, and now as vice president and opening our southern border. Look, as I said, we all want to live in safe communities. And you could not get a more distinct difference between these two sides. The radical, leftist, Kamala Harris, Governor Walz, and Senator Tammy Baldwin, or President Trump, JD Vance, and Eric Hovde. And we are going to back law enforcement. And let me tell you, anybody that doesn't, my wife has a great line: walk a day in their shoes. They go out every day to defend our communities, defend you, put risk of their own personal safety. So walk a day in their shoes. I support law enforcement. President Trump, JD Vance will always have your back. And we will never incorporate such a crazy idea as defund the police. So let's restore our safety, bring back this wonderful country, and thank you, Vice President, soon to be Vice President Vance.
All right, so I'm going to take a few questions from the press, but before I do, let me just try to bring this home here, because it is very easy and very fun to criticize the record of Kamala Harris, but we also have to remind ourselves that we don't just have a vision on the Trump campaign. We don't just have a bunch of promises on the Trump campaign. We have got 4 years of Donald Trump's successful leadership that brought public safety to our streets, and that is something to celebrate and look forward to. So here is President Trump's solemn promise to our law enforcement community and all of us who benefit from their sacrifices and their public safety. It is simple. We are going to end sanctuary cities in this country. We're going to bring back pro-law enforcement cities. We are going to deport the violent, illegal aliens that have come into this country over the last few years. No more free rides, no more amnesty. We're going to support the death penalty for drug dealers because they kill far more people than some of the most violent and vicious criminals. We have got to have real penalties for people who are killing our kids and poisoning our communities. We're going to protect police from frivolous lawsuits. You hear President Trump talk about that? The reason that it's so hard for the police to do their job sometimes is they know if they do their job, they're going to get sued for it. We're going to protect them from those lawsuits and make it easier for our police to do their jobs. And finally, we're going to stand up to soft-on-crime prosecutors. If a police officer does their job and brings in a bad guy, we need some prosecutors who actually lock those people up and put them behind bars. It's common sense. All this stuff is just simple common sense. Now, we know what happens when we don't have leadership who support our law enforcement. We saw it in Kenosha just a few years ago. You all know this better than I do, that 4 years ago, Kenosha had terrible riots after a police shooting. And who was it? Who was the President of the United States that promised that he would send in law enforcement if asked? That was Donald Trump. Who was it that pacified the streets of Wisconsin and ensured that those riots didn't spiral out of control and burn down the entire city? That was President Donald J. Trump. And of course, we know the governor didn't initially want the support from President Trump, but after a couple days of those riots, he relented and did the smart thing and allowed President Trump to send federal support. Without that, I really think that Kenosha would still be recovering from those terrible riots today. But today, look, we're in a beautiful place, and it's a beautiful town, and we can thank President Trump's leadership and also the law enforcement who did their jobs and did it well. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. Now, I will always have the back of law enforcement. Let's bring up our reporters here to ask some questions. I will always have the backs of law enforcement. I will always support our police officers because I know what it's like, again, to be a kid who can't even believe and can't even rely on public safety. I want every single child in this country, whether they're rich or poor, whether they grow up on the right side of the tracks or the wrong side of the tracks, every child deserves to have public safety, and that's what we're going to do when Donald J. Trump is president. God bless you guys. Thank you all for coming out. Simplify, thank you to these great public servants. Let's get Air Coffee across the finish line, and let's make this country great again. God bless you guys. And what I'll do here is I'd love to start out, thank you, ma'am. I'd love to start out with local Wisconsin reporters and take a few questions from the local reporters, and then if we've got time afterwards, we'll take some questions from the national folks. So if you're a local reporter, please raise your hand. Ma'am?
Hi, Senator. Thank you for your time. It's Mary Jo Ola with TMJ4 News here in Milwaukee. You were just in Milwaukee a few days ago, now in Kenosha. Can you just talk about how much of a priority Wisconsin is to the Trump campaign and where are you headed next in Wisconsin?
Well, look, I just like Wisconsin a lot, right? So I'm going to spend a lot of time with you fine people. But obviously, politically, Wisconsin may be very well the most important state in the country come November. And we believe that. We know that. All the polling says it. But most of all, you feel it on the ground. Look, Wisconsin is a state that I think has really suffered from two failures of the Kamala Harris presidency, vice presidency. The first is Wisconsin is a great and proud manufacturing state with a lot of skilled craftsmen and a lot of people who work with their own hands, make things with their own hands, and they know that with Kamala Harris's policies that raise the cost of energy, you're shipping a lot of good manufacturing jobs off to China. President Trump and I believe we want to keep those manufacturing jobs right here in Wisconsin. Let's do it with Wisconsin workers, and let's produce prosperity for the whole country. And the second thing is, you saw with the riots in Kenosha in the summer of 2020, Wisconsin has suffered when you don't have good, smart, pro-public safety leadership. And that's what Donald Trump and I want to bring back to the White House is back in the blue, supporting our police officers and making sure that public safety is the birthright of every American citizen. I think that message that shared economic and public safety message is going to bring Wisconsin home to Republicans in 2024, and it's going to make Donald Trump the President of the United States again. So yes, it's very important. I also say, when my kids came up here for the RNC convention 4 or 5 weeks ago, the one place they really wanted to go was the Cheese Castle. So, if you've all, how many of you have been to the Cheese Castle? All right, good. So my kids have been to the Cheese Castle. The first time I ever came to Wisconsin was 12 years ago with my then girlfriend, now my wife. We made our stop at the Wisconsin Cheese Castle, so every time we come back, we got to stop at the Wisconsin Cheese Castle. But it's good to be here. We love this state. Other local reporters, ma'am.
Hi, Megan Marshall with Spectrum News. This is the second endorsement from a local law enforcement here in Wisconsin. Tell me why that's so important to you in your campaign.
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that law enforcement knows who's on their side, right? Donald Trump has been endorsed by so many law enforcement organizations across the country, but now 2 in the state of Wisconsin just the past week, because they know that Donald Trump is the one who's actually going to stand up for them and support them. And look, we have got real problems in law enforcement recruitment in this country, and certainly right here in the state of Wisconsin. A lot of our police departments are underfunded and under-resourced. We don't have enough cops to do the job of keeping us safe. And then on top of that, we've got Mexican drug cartels operating as far north as Kenosha, Wisconsin, because we have a border czar, Kamala Harris, who refuses to do her job. These guys just want common sense back, right? Some of them are Democrats, some of them are Republicans. Maybe they agree or disagree with us on tax policy, but they agree with us that we've got to have common sense public safety. And if we don't have public safety, we don't have anything. You can't build a business, you can't go to work, you can't take your kids on a walk in your neighborhood without public safety. Public safety is the foundation of having a good country, and the police of Wisconsin know Donald Trump is the public safety candidate. A few more locals, ma'am, yes.
Yeah, I'm Hannah Hilliard with Channel 12 from up in Milwaukee. Obviously, there is a big event happening not too far away from here over in Chicago. Did you catch any of the DNC tonight, or last night? If you did, what were your immediate thoughts?
Well, my immediate thoughts were all the people booing. I agree with them. That was my response to it, was boo. I watched little bits and pieces of it. We were out campaigning yesterday, so I got home to Cincinnati a little on the later side yesterday, so I watched some of it. I will say just the contrast between the public safety policies of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is really striking, and it's almost a joke to me that they held it in Chicago, which has become the murder capital of the United States of America thanks to very failed Democrat leadership. I mean, I believe last weekend in the city of Chicago, you had something like 40 shootings and 17 people who lost their lives. That is something that we would not accept in a third world country, much less in one of our beautiful, great American cities like Chicago. And my little theory about why they decided to have the convention in Chicago is, Tim Walz has been going around saying that he served in war, and maybe they did it in Chicago so that he could actually accurately say that he visited a combat zone. Because Chicago has violent crime statistics that actually mirror, again, third world, highly violent countries. Again, public safety is the birthright of every citizen in this country. Poor or rich, black or white, nobody should be growing up in a community where you have a murder rate like that. And I think it is a good contrast between the policies of Kamala Harris that promote violent crime and the criminals who do it, and the policies of Donald J. Trump who promote peace, who promote prosperity, and want to throw the violent criminals behind bars. That's what Donald J. Trump wants to do, and I share that. Anybody else here? Ma'am? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is
Hey.
Stephanie Quirk with Fox 6 News in Milwaukee. Kind of going off the DNC, Vice President Kamala Harris is paying a visit to Milwaukee tonight, holding a rally. Do you have any response to that?
No response. Look, Kamala Harris is going to run the campaign that she runs. I would say that I wish that she would do what I'm doing right now, which is talk to the media and actually answer some tough questions. If you think what I'm doing here right now, what am I asking? The question I'm asking is for the fine people gathered to vote for me to be their vice president of the United States. What an awesome responsibility, and what an incredible thing that I'm asking them to do. Now, Kamala Harris is going around asking people to be their president of the United States, but she won't answer a single tough question, and she won't interact with the American people unless there's a teleprompter standing between them and her. And I think that's crazy. And I think that what the media has got to start doing is it's got to start saying, look, if Kamala Harris is not going to stand and answer some tough questions, we're going to stop giving her this fake, fawning coverage. Demand that she do what any president has had to do, which is answer some tough questions. But look, her argument, I can't get over this, because you watch her rallies, and Kamala's argument is something that I could not stay with a straight face. She stands there and says on day one, she's going to tackle the housing affordability crisis in our country. On day one, she's going to tackle the grocery affordability crisis in our country, and they are crises. Well, Kamala, day one was 3.5 years ago. You've been the vice president for 3.5 years. What the hell have you been doing for all that time? So for the people in Milwaukee who are going to go to her rally or going to listen to what she says, I just ask them, if she has such good ideas for how to bring down the cost of food and groceries and housing, why doesn't she do it now? She's the vice president. Not talk about what she's going to do in 6 months. Do it now, because she's got the power right now. Thank you. Any other locals? Okay, we'll do a couple nationals, and then we got to hit the road. Go ahead, man.
Senator Merrill Cornfield from the Washington Post. I have a policy question for
Great.
you. We don't want to talk about policy? So my question is, before you were in the Senate, there was the vote on the Violence Against Women Act. And one of the hiccups with negotiating that bill was, should people who are convicted of stalking be able to possess firearms? What do you think about that?
Well, look, I think that we certainly don't want violent criminals to have access to weapons. And that includes people, I think, who have been convicted of stalking. But I think it's important to say convicted. And what a lot of those of us who are pro-Second Amendment, what we don't want is, we don't want somebody to have their gun rights taken away when they haven't actually been in a court of law, right? Whether it's a First Amendment right, a Second Amendment right, any right, you are entitled to due process in this country. And so the criticisms that I've seen of that are not that certainly people who are convicted of a crime, they should not be able to carry a firearm. But people who have not gone through due process, they still have their rights, whether First Amendment, Second Amendment, whether walking around liberty or other rights. And I think that's an important distinction here between our approach and the Democrats' approach. We don't believe in the Republican Party that you should take people's rights away unless they've gone through a court of law.
Hi, Senator. Kit Maher, CNN. I know Donald Trump has been reported.
Guys, she's one of the good CNN reporters. There's like two of them. She's okay.
Back to my question. So Donald Trump has enlisted the help of Tulsi Gabbard to prep for his debate. I'd like to know how you were prepping for a debate with Tim Walz, who has described himself as a bad debater. Who's helping you, and how are you prepping?
Well, I found a good friend from back home who embellishes and lies a lot, and I'm having him stand in for Tim Walz. That's what we're doing during our debate. But look, all kidding aside, what we're going to do is we're going to focus a lot on policy. Right? The way that I'm trying to prepare is to try to make sure that we're prepared to answer the American people's questions on how we're going to make their lives better, how we're going to make their communities safer, how we're going to bring back prosperity and low prices to the American economy. And we're going to focus on policy, and then obviously we're going to answer whatever questions the moderators have. That's how we're focusing. And by the way, just on President Trump, we have to remember, Tulsi Gabbard was a Democratic congresswoman just a few years ago. She ran against Kamala Harris back in 2020, and now she is firmly behind the Trump-Vance ticket. We're actually the ticket that is supported by common sense people across the spectrum. I think Tulsi Gabbard, you saw her, she basically ended Kamala's campaign on the debate stage, so she's a hell of a debater, but she's also one of these people who believes in some common sense things like we shouldn't send America's sons and daughters off to fight in stupid wars, right? Amen to that, Tulsi. And I think it's really telling that the campaign that has brought a lot of Democrats and Republicans and independents together, it's the campaign of Donald J. Trump, and that's very important. We'll do one more question. Sir.
Hey, Senator. Zach Halishak, Washington Examiner. I had a question. Last year, you got a lot of attention for visiting striking UAW members in Ohio. Last night, Sean Fain attacked you at the DNC and Donald Trump. Do you believe the party's going to attract more union voters this cycle, and kind of what's the strategy to do that?
Look, I think that my message to Sean Fain and any other leader of the labor movement would be, who is the campaign? Which campaign is actually going to protect the jobs of American workers, union and non-union alike? It's the campaign of Donald J. Trump. So sign up, get involved, and support the candidate that's actually going to protect your jobs. Now, Sean Fain, he'll go on TV and say that a majority of his membership is going to actually back Donald Trump. Why are a majority of auto workers going to back Donald Trump? The same reason the majority of American manufacturers across the spectrum are going to back Donald Trump, because he's the one who wants to protect their job. He's the one who's saying, if the Chinese want to use slave labor and then import stuff into our country, we're going to put tariffs on the stuff they make with slave labor, and we're going to protect the jobs of American workers. When Kamala Harris says she stands for the United Auto Workers, and yet she supports EV mandates that's going to have every single one of their jobs destroyed and shipped to China, because it's China that's making most of the EVs, and America, we're still making a lot of gas-powered cars. I think people ought to be able to drive whatever the hell they want, because this is the United States of America. We don't tell people what to do. But importantly, if we don't tell people what to do, they're going to be able to buy cars that are made in America with American workers doing the jobs. And that is why I think we're going to win the majority of union and non-union workers in this country. Whatever Sean Fain says, if he listens to his membership, they're behind Donald J. Trump. And of course, there are a lot of other workers who aren't just auto workers who are exactly the same position. All right. What I'll say here finally to wrap up, thanks to the media for asking a few questions, is just God bless you guys. Thank you for coming out. I get so much joy and so much energy out of being here and meeting people and getting to talk to people and seeing what's going on in this country. We're going to win this race in November, and it's going to start right here in Wisconsin. So what I ask all of you is, look, we've got 76 days to this campaign, and early voting probably starts, 30 days early in Wisconsin? Get out there. Get your neighbors to the polls. Get your family members to the polls. Knock on doors. Make phone calls. We are going to win this race if we get out there and vote. So God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Let's go vote, Wisconsin. Let's go win in November, and let's take this country back and do it the right way. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being here.